Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're cutting through the noise to get to the core of a really fascinating paradox in generative AI.
It's a great one. We're seeing these models that can create just breathtakingly complex art.
Right, they can master artistic styles, but then they fail at the most basic, simple, technical instructions. It's inspiring and frankly infuriating at the same time.
It's completely baffling. You have a system that can, mimic a master painter's brushstrokes, but then it treats something like output size as optional.
Just a friendly suggestion, maybe.
Exactly. And it really makes you ask, what are these models actually prioritizing? What's going on under the hood?
That is the core tension we're going to unpack. And for this deep dive, we're centering on a real-world evaluation of a new image model called Nano Banana Pro.
The source is a blog, kianmeng.org. It's Notes on AI, Part 30. And the author is a guy named Eng.
And his self-description is, I think, key here. He calls himself an old software plumber.
Yeah, that tells you everything about his perspective.
Yeah.
He isn't just looking for a pretty picture. He's looking for leaks in the system. He wants precision, reliability.
Precisely. His whole mission was built on work he'd done before. He'd already talked about the predecessor, Nano Banana, in an earlier post.
Part 27, yeah.
Yeah.
He was frustrated then.
So the big question for this new Pro version was simple. Is it finally consistent? Can you depend on the output?
And, well, we can just give you the spoiler right at the top.
Let's do it.
The answer is no. Eng's conclusion was that the core results are pretty much unchanged. It failed the main consistency test.
Okay, so to really understand the scale of that failure, I think we first have to talk about the scale of the success that came right before it.
Oh, absolutely. The prompt Eng created to test this thing was immense, really ambitious.
He was trying to push its artistic and, I guess, narrative limits.
He was. It wasn't just, give me a picture of a cat. It was a challenge. Create a multi-panel instruction comic, a mini tutorial.
Titled, Getting Started with Nano Banana Pro.
Right, with the banana emoji and everything.
And the style he asked for was just incredibly specific, not just make it a comic.
No. He specified a poetic watercolor ink aesthetic. It had to have fine ink outlines and soft, bleeding color washes.
So you're asking the model to balance two very different, very difficult artistic techniques.
And to do it across 4 separate panels? Yeah, I mean, that alone is a really high bar.
Yeah.
But the content requirements were the real test.
Let's break those down, because the fact that it succeeded here is, frankly, staggering.
Yeah.
Panel 1. It had to show a mobile phone interface.
A Gemini interface, specifically. And it wasn't just a generic screenshot.
No, the details were so precise. Muted grays and blues, but with one single vivid yellow button.
Labeled on Create Image.
And it even needed text overlays, like choose your model and a checkbox for Thinking with 3 Pro.
Wait, I have to jump in here. The fact that it can embed slightly technical text, like Thinking with 3 Pro, inside a watercolor style, that's incredible.
It really is. It shows this amazing control over how it places and renders text.
It suggests it really understands descriptive language. If you can describe it, it can draw it. So moving on to panel 2.
The style shifts a bit here.
It does. It needed a cheerful person adding their selfie. This time, warm pastel colors. And get this, visible paper grain texture.
Paper grain texture? I mean, that's not even part of the drawing. That's the material the drawing is supposed to be on. That's a whole other level of detail.
Exactly. But panel 3 is where it gets really conceptual. This one had to visualize the person's thoughts.
Their thoughts about what the AI could do to their selfie.
Yes. And Eng demanded 3 very specific, very different versions of that person.
And these weren't easy transformations. He asked for the person as a plushie.
A plushie, yeah. Then the same person with a mohawk hairstyle.
And finally, as a small figurine.
It's a total stress test of identity. It has to understand who the person is, then apply these 3 wildly different filters, a toy, a hairstyle, a sculpture, and make them all look like background thoughts.
All while staying in that watercolor style.
And then panel 4, the last piece, it needed to integrate language. A speech bubble that says, transform me into a watercolor painting.
So the final verdict on this artistic gauntlet.
Eng's words were that it looked artistically impressive and beautifully drawn. The model absolutely nailed it. A total masterpiece of execution.
So just to sum up, we have an AI that can handle the massive cognitive load of creating a complex, multi-panel watercolor tutorial. It gets the paper texture, the specific button labels, the conceptual transformations.
It's a complete artistic success.
Okay, now we pivot to the failure. After all that brilliance, it just hits a wall.
A very simple wall.
So what was the one single non-artistic instruction in that whole prompt that Nano Banana Pro just could not handle?
The aspect ratio, the dimensions. Aang explicitly wrote the instruction, make the aspect ratio 16.9.
16 by 9. The standard widescreen format for, I don't know, almost every screen we use. It's not some obscure technical term.
And the model just ignored it, flat out.
So what did it produce?
It defaulted back to a square, a 1.1 aspect ratio, specifically 124 by 50,024 pixels.
So it got the text inside the image right, but it ignored the instruction for the shape of the image container itself.
Exactly.
Okay, let me just push back a tiny bit. Are we sure it wasn't a user error? You know, maybe he buried the instruction at the end of a really long prompt or something?
That's a fair question, but the author's notes make it clear this is a known, persistent problem. It's an inherited failure.
Inherited from the old Nano Banana model?
Yes. This 1024 by 1024 square is a really stubborn default. It's likely a limitation baked into the architecture, probably because so much of the training data was square images from, say, Instagram or other platforms.
Ah, okay. So it's not a random choice. It's a deep-seated bias in the system, almost like a hard-coded setting.
That's a great way to put it. There's a very strong prior for that 1.1 format. So the part of the model that understood poetic watercolor, it might have seen 16.9, but that instruction just didn't have enough weight to override the system's architectural habit.
So the descriptive word plushy won, but the operational numbers 16.9 lost.
Pretty much. The aesthetic commands, the words that describe how things should look, seem to be high priority. They map directly to the visual training data.
But technical specs,
Yeah.
aspect ratio, resolution, those are more like instructions for the machine. They're metadata, not really part of the picture itself.
Exactly. So in the training data, 16.9 is probably just another string of text with a much weaker visual connection than a word like watercolor. So the default wins. The square wins.
And this is where the knowledge nugget for you, the listener, really starts to crystallize. This is a huge deal for anyone trying to use these tools in a serious production workflow.
It's devastating, really. And it goes right back to Aang's identity as a software plumber.
Right.
Think about it from a professional standpoint. If you're making assets for a YouTube video or a presentation, you need 16.9. It's not negotiable. If you generate 50 beautiful images and most of them come out as squares, you just wasted a ton of time and money.
The artistic quality becomes totally irrelevant if the asset doesn't fit the pipeline.
It just doesn't work. It pushes Nano Banana Pro, even with all its creative power, back into being just a brainstorming tool. It's not a reliable production system.
And you can see why someone like Aang would find this so frustrating. If you look at the rest of his blog, everything he's interested in is about precision.
Yeah, he writes these deep notes on programming languages. Elixir, Rust, Python. Those are worlds where syntax is absolute. You can't just suggest a command to a Python script.
And it's not just code. He has notes on typesetting, on photography.
Two fields completely dependent on dimensions and ratios. Typesetting is the art of precise layout. Photography is all about framing and aspect ratios.
So for someone who lives by those technical rules, seeing this incredibly advanced AI fail at something so basic must be maddening.
It's not a nitpick. It's like seeing a beautiful skyscraper built on a foundation that's completely wobbly.
Okay, so let's synthesize this. The key finding from Aang's evaluation of Nano Banana Pro is that the model is, without a doubt, a master of artistic complexity.
Absolutely. It can handle incredibly demanding styles, narrative content, text, all of it.
But all that success is just completely undercut by its failure to follow the most basic technical instruction. The 16.9 aspect ratio. The art is great, the reliability is not.
And this deep dive really shows that the next big step for AI isn't just about making prettier pictures. It's about getting the system to actually listen to functional commands with the same priority it gives to descriptive words.
We need more plumbers in AI.
We do.
So this leaves us with a final provocative thought for you to chew on. If an AI can perfectly execute something as complex as a poetic watercolor-ink comic down to the paper grain, but can't follow a simple instruction like 16.9.
So what does that actually tell us about how it understands language?
Right. Does it suggest that these systems only understand language as a tool for description, for association, and not as a tool for operational commands? Is it all just word association?
And if that's true, maybe we're using it wrong. Maybe we shouldn't be putting technical specs in the text prompt at all. Maybe we need to demand separate, reliable UI control styles and buttons for things like aspect ratio and leave the prompt purely for describing the art. We might be asking the language model to do a job that really belongs to the software interface.